Dry Gulch '06. BC and his friends had just come to Dry Gulch after a long, lengthy trip from their church in Texas all the way to Ohio, almost said Ohio, Oklahoma. The following morning, they begin their day by having a nice warm breakfast, followed by, you know, chapel services in the morning. And now, for the first activity, go-karts. You might think, wouldn't you want to go to the swimming pool first if that place has any? Yeah, but we want to get some speed into our systems before, you know, getting wet. Anyway, all right, y'all can go. These new go-karts look really cool. All right, great racing, everyone. Pull over to the side. After a high-speed go-kart race, our campers begin to travel to their next activity, which is, well, haven't really decided yet. After all, we are trying to revisit my childhood, so it's difficult to remember what I personally did, in activities. It's important to note, however, that when we did activities, we all had to do it together as a group. So, yeah, go-karts, we all had to do it together as a group. But, yeah, anyway, I don't know physics, though. The arcade. Alright, guys, come with me. We're gonna go to the arcade. Also, it's important to note that I'm using Sandy Shores as, pretty much the Dry Gulch of the story, even though the only thing going for it is it's in a desert, which is kind of like how Wild West towns were, but anyway. Also, it should be noted, I'm out of character real quick just to kind of pass the time. So just bear in mind that when I'm in character, my voice is a lot lighter to make it sound like I actually am my younger self. But I'm just talking to pass the time. The distance between the go-karts and the arcades, because we had two of them, it wasn't really that far. Also, it should be noted that, actually, wait, no, we didn't have two arcades until 2007. Um, yeah, because at the time, the Main Street arcade that we had, which if you've watched any videos on YouTube of Dry Gulch itself, which it now goes under a different name, but if you ever watched any videos of that summer camp, then you'll know what I'm talking about. They had two arcades, which the camp that it is now, which is called New Life Ranch Frontier Cove, they don't have arcades anymore, I don't think. But then again, I haven't been out there since 2009, back when it was still Dry Gulch. So, and that was like my last ever camp visit because I was 12 at the time. So, you know. Anyway, um, yeah. So, but we only had one arcade for 2005 and 2006. I think from 2007 onward, they introduced the Downtown Arcade, um, which is an arcade that had newer games. Sorry about that. I got a good sleep last night. It's just couldn't really sleep that well last night. I was like how BC couldn't really sleep before his trip. Anyway, yeah. So the only reason why I'm like doing this to get to the arcade over there is just simply because of the fact that it's meant to simulate how, in order for us to get from one place to another at the camp, while the staff there used golf carts or caddies or whatever they were, because they were a special kind of golf cart. Or, I think they were golf carts. It's just that they were meant for like transport traversal. Um, so the camp staff and the church staff that went with us would ride in those and would have water guns. So, like, imagine you were going to your next activity or you were already at your activity that you were in, and there's like a golf cart with people on there, and they have like super soakers and whatnot, and they just pelt you with water, which is good because it does get pretty hot during the summer. Like it's called summer camp. You're expecting it to be really toasty, so you know. But of course we would get sprayed down with water, but it was all good because it's all in the nature of good fun, and you know, who could resist being splashed by an Arctic blast? I think it was an Arctic shock. Because there was a water blaster that came out in. Wait, no, that was 2007 when that thing came out. The Arctic Blast, which was a super soaker blaster that um, Okay, so we have Arctic Blast and Arctic Shock. Um, so I know one blaster, you just had to put ice cubes into the reservoir before putting in water because it was designed in such a way where the water would stay cool. I think it's that the reservoir itself had a lining of that same cooling stuff that you'd see in like uh, coolers and stuff. Not coolers, but like those lunch boxes that are insulated or something. Like they keep stuff cold and fresh. It probably had something like that, but yeah. Anyway, we're not too far from the arcade, but just so you're aware, yeah. So we campers didn't ride golf carts unless it was like, maybe one of us is sick and we had to be brought to the nurse really quickly, just uh, just as an emergency. Uh, but aside from that, we wouldn't be allowed to ride the carts. Of course, that was one of the games. Oh, I'll do it later today whenever I have free time. Anyway, yeah. So the arcade that we had at the time was just full of like retro games. So, you but starting in 2007, the Main Street arcade, which initially had special screens lined up on the wall with consoles underneath them, would be replaced with a retro arcade that had stuff like Spy Hunter, Galaga, Tron, Frogger, Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, all sorts of stuff. Um, and the building that they formerly used as the arcade would end up being the visitor station until they would get one built in later years that the camp operated, which this was already long after I stopped going. Before you ask why I stopped going, it's not because of anything disciplinary, although I wasn't the most well-behaved person there. I know I said I wasn't the wellst. I wasn't the most well-behaved person, but what kid is, you know? I mean, it's certainly not my fault that I was born with Asperger's syndrome, which I just stopped calling it that because the person who the thing is named after was tied to a very bad group of people from the 1940s. So, autism spectrum disorder. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. Yeah. So for now, let's just pretend that the building I'm going to, which we didn't run there. Don't worry. We walked. It's just because I have the game set to where I run whenever I move with the thumbstick. Um, that's the reason why I'm running. Is simply because of the fact that you know, one, the distance between the go-karts and the arcade was fairly sizable, but it wasn't nearly this big. So just imagine that we're walking to the arcade and the distance wasn't super far away. I mean, in this case it would be because it was a pale yellow building. So, anyway. All right, you guys up for some video games?
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Oh man. I'm not good at this game. Oh man. Ah, I got messed up.
You were looking for me? Yes. Of
It's also important to note we
course.
didn't have one of these at the camp.
I see. A man with evil intentions. He comes to take what is yours. Come back soon.
After a fun visit to the arcade, the campers go to lunch and continue their activities. Afterwards, they have lunch at about 3 p.m. and continue their activities some more. Then it's off to dinner, and then another session completed. They go to the chapel, another nice night of praise and worship and whatnot. And then they head out for some night activities, including nightly go-karts, and whatever else the world brings them. Afterwards, they head back to their dorms, or cabins as we always called them. And then, yeah, it's time to go to bed. Who knows where the next day at camp will bring them. All I know is I was there, because, like I said, Rewind is based on my own life, so, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I apologize that this wasn't the most enthralling and lengthy stream. It's just I'm gonna get the second day out there. Plus, there's really not much I can do to emulate the activities and whatnot on here. So bear in mind, I am doing my best with what I have. I'm just saying a lot because I still have $10 million. You know. Also, in case you're wondering, the LMOC here will be what we'll be using for lake activities. Which, funny thing, the dining hall, which is represented by that building that's just in front of the lake, right over there, or the sea, or whatever. Yeah, this building right here. That's what I'll be using to kind of simulate the dining hall, which is kind of funny because it rested just above the lake. I don't mean it's floating above it. No, it's like um, it was on a hill. Like it would be on top of this big hill slope thing that descended down to the lake, and there'd be a staircase that would lead there and all that stuff. And believe it or not, people would actually fish, but not at the camp though. For obvious reasons. I don't think any of us kids would want to get a fishing bobber hooked into their foot. That would not be good, even if we did wear lake shoes, which we had to wear lake shoes for protection. But we didn't see that. It's just that caught my eye. I'll take care of that after I'm done with the stream. Partially because I feel like it'd be quite, you know, against character for BC to have the cops on him because, he's an innocent kid. I don't think an innocent kid would have cops on him. Anyway, yeah. As we make our way to the quote unquote cabin, which it's funny that we called them cabins because they weren't actual cabins, they were just different buildings that, at least in terms of Dry Gulch, were meant to resemble different businesses and stuff that they would have in the show that Dry Gulch was based in. So, Dry Gulch itself that they used for a group of different Christian kid shows, one of them being The Adventures of Gospel Bill. There's another called The Treasure of Eagle Mountain. There's the Gospel Bill show, I think. Um, Adventures in Dry Gulch, I know, is one of them. But basically, those different shows would be set in Dry Gulch, and you're probably thinking, well, how did Dry Gulch get its name? At least in terms of like the show's like little built-in universe kind of thing. Dry Gulch got its name because of the fact that it was a dry city, meaning that any kind of liquors and alcohols and whatnot would not be sold there. And true to life, they don't actually, or they didn't sell that at the general store at all. They sold sodas and stuff. They sold toys and other kinds of really cool stuff like cat guns and stuff. But um, that was it. Like, it's pretty much a novelty store place where you can buy stuff. That includes shirts that represented the summer camp's theme for that year. You could buy CDs for the music that they used for praise and worship and stuff. So, but Dry Gulch was a old west town with a prohibition of alcohol, at least in terms of the story and universe of Dry Gulch itself, like for the shows. Um, However, there were some things that people noticed were anachronistic for the show. For example, they had television sets and radios and stuff that the characters would use, which is very uncanny when you realize that isn't Dry Gulch supposed to be an old west town? So, yeah, but I choose to believe with my own headcanon that what it is that the town itself is in the present day. It's just that the town itself is technically frozen in time, so anytime they do get new technology, it's them willing to embrace that technology while otherwise still sticking to their old-fashioned ways. So, I might be wrong about that, but then again, you have to consider the fact that I'm a much older, smarter, and more capable BC than I was 20 years ago when I was 9 years old. So, anyway, with that being said, thank you very much for watching. I know this wasn't the most action-packed stream and, all that other fancy schmancy stuff, but I just wanted to get something out there to make sure that this is a daily series. Tomorrow, though, might be a longer stream, but I don't want to jinx that. But just know that unlike last year, where I can only get 3 of the 5 days done, I am aiming to have all 5 days finished for this. Anyway, with that being said, I hope you all have enjoyed this regardless. And if you did, please like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. You don't have to do any of that stuff, but it is certainly appreciated. And let your friends know about my channel so that way they can check it out and let others know. Uh, and I do intend on streaming more often. And before you ask, there may be plans on doing a Let's Play of the Doom the Dark Ages Revelations DLC. I don't know when. It'll be whenever I have time. And we catch y'all later.